Yet Nana Appiah Mensah, NAM1 pressed on. By 13th April 2017, another meeting was called. And on 19th July 2017, Bank of Ghana issued yet another.
Hello?
Hello. 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 Hello.
Good evening. Abusia Penny. Abusia Mfantsipim Abusia Momfrey. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to welcome you all to the 10th edition of the Moba Annual Engagement Series. I guess we all know why we've started a bit late. Some were monitoring the President's sectional address at the UN. I will take the national anthem, the Mfantsipim anthem, and then the welcome address. Yeah. I understand we're supposed to sing the first verse. Yeah. We'll call on Reverend Edward Sari to give us the opening prayer.
Shall we pray? Father, today we thank you. We are gathered in a cause that is meant to impact generations unborn. We are gathered to seek and receive knowledge and understanding. And today, sons of Kwaboche are gathered together. A people who started the whole journey for this nation. And today, we gather not to plot evil, but rather to deepen knowledge, gather understanding, gather strength, and push forward the boundaries of what this nation can and must become. Our motto has always been, Jen Shekan. Our intention is to cause men to seek, to think ahead, and to plan ahead, and to become thinkers, visionaries, and people who can tell the times and seasons like the sons of Issachar. Help us, Lord, in this cause. Today, give deep insight to them who gather and sit and speak. And for those of us who sit to listen, open us to receive the knowledge, and let it be a day of enlightenment and brilliance for all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I'll call on Mr. Philip Craig Jones to tell us our purpose of being here this evening.
Good evening, Ebusiapin, old boys, distinguished guests, friends of Mother Kwaboche. My name is Philip Chris Jones, a proud member of the 1992 year group of Moba. It is my honor to welcome you to the 10th annual engagement series, right here at the EcoBank head office auditorium. This series is more than just a gathering. It is a chance to connect, to share ideas, and to remind ourselves of the values that shaped us whilst we were on the hills of Kwaboche. Leadership, service, integrity, and excellence. Tonight, as we reflect on our theme, Yen Nananum Butaipa, 149 years of sustaining legacy, building excellence. We celebrate our proud history, but also look forward with fresh energy. Wherever the sons of Mother Kwaboche are found, in classrooms, in boardrooms, communities, or on the global stage, we continue to make a difference. Now, ladies and gentlemen, every good conversation needs a steady guide, and we are privileged this evening to have such a guide. He's one of our own, and he's from the class of 1985. With over 20 years of experience in international trade and investment promotion. He has worked with the World Trade Center, Accra, Ernst & Young, and the Ghana Standards Authority. Today, he serves as Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, Ghana. Please join me in giving a warm Moba welcome to our moderator for the evening, Mr. Emmanuel Donny Kwame. Please, with a round of applause, Let's welcome him. And thank you for your attention. And let's enjoy an evening of insight, solidarity, and inspiration together. Kwabuche Jenshekan.
Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 10th edition of the Moba Engagement Series. My name, as you already mentioned, next year we will be celebrating our 150th anniversary. I guess the US will also be celebrating their 250th anniversary. And as part of Moba tradition, the 75, 85, 95, and 2005 year groups are tasked to organize the 149th speech and prize giving day. So the panel will definitely be constituted of critical thinkers from these year groups. And we've gotten the best out of the year groups. They will delve deep into finding solutions to the pressing public discourse, as we all know, in the country. The theme, we all know, has to do with building excellence and then sustaining legacies. Building excellence, I guess we've already achieved that. We're currently the national champions for maths and science, and the central regional sports champions. The subject of sustaining legacies, I would like to pay tribute to some of our Nananum, especially those who got close to achieving the ultimate by leading this country. Pawili, who I met personally as chairman of the Child Evangelism Fellowship at the time. His faith in God is par excellence. And then Buzia, who hails from my Bono region. And one of his initiatives, which I was discussing with the panel behind the scenes, has to do with Ghana having, a central sewage system, following up on what was built by Kwame Nkrumah in 1960. And we've also been able to provide 3 vice presidents for the country. And currently, the discussion has always been what we've seen in China. And a lot of people believe it's because they've gotten engineers in charge of affairs. Our first vice president in Ghana was an engineer, and he's an small boy. I was just reading his book, and I realized the amount of work the Graf Johnson did in that field as head of research at CSR and BRI. So our discussion will be tilted a bit towards STEM, research, and then science and engineering. I will invite my panel for them to join me. Our colleague from Moba 75 will be joining us online. So I invite Prof to take his seat, and my own mate Bernard from MTN, and then Augustine. It's working. Do we have a panelist online? I'll start with Prof. Are you okay? Is it working? Yeah. I'm good. We all know the elephant in the room, free SHS. And your thoughts on the sub-teams, and then the past few weeks, we've all witnessed a lot within the education space. I have my own difficulty getting to my office as a result of the long queue of parents trying to find solutions to their school placements. And we also have problems with finance. Others are talking of endowment fund, school feeding. Your take on, should we review free SHS or should we maintain the status quo?
Thank you. Thank you very much for directing the question to me, having the first shot of it. Free SHS. I think the debate has been in the space for some time. But then, if you ask me whether we should review it or not, we may have to look at what goes into free SHS. And for me, funding is key. If you are not sure of the funding source of a social, policy like free SHS, I think you better not start it. However, if you look at what we have and the policies that backs the free SHS, clearly we've not come out as a nation to say that we are using part of taxpayers' money or we are using, a source that can be sustainable. If you ask me again whether we should continue to make it free or not, I would say no. No, in a sense that we believe in social equity, but then also you may have to look at the dynamics of the society and then determine those who can pay and those who cannot pay. We've been investing in identifications, like national identification card. And if you pick a typical national identification card, you should be able to determine, a child's parents' job, and then also possibly be able to determine the income level of that parent. And so, if the state has invested in this identification structure, and we're still keeping it, and for now it fits into so many things. You go into open bank accounts, they ask you of your national identification card. You're going to have maybe a DVLA to that point. They still ask of your national identification card. We are tying it to so many things, and the next level is to link the national identification card to maybe going to the shop to buy a few things and how you can be identified. And then even bank accounts, again, like I said. But then, if we cannot use this to identify or segregate among those who are entering the senior secondary school level to determine, okay, fine, looking at your background, you cannot pay, the fees. Or looking at the parent that is bringing the child with that identification card, you can or cannot pay. We'll continue to commit state funds, and at the end of the day, we'll get to a point where it will tend to, sustaining this kind of policy becomes a problem. So for me, it depends on the source where the money that we are using to fund the free SHS is coming from. If it is coming from a source that is degenerational, like taxpayers, portion of taxpayers' funds, no problem. That one, we know very well that we can keep it going. Another thing that we may have to look at is whether the free is not coming to compromise quality. That's something that we may have to look at, apart from segregating to determine who is likely to pay and who is not able to pay, whether the free that we've given, that free is, coming to compromise quality. The reason why I'm saying this is that we were all here when students were complaining of, my kids are, part of the beneficiaries of this free SHS. And they come home telling me that the food is not good. And clearly, the report keeps on coming from the subject who have been benefiting from the free SHS. apart from the food, whether we are not committing so much to the free SHS and we avoid the infrastructure provision that is supposed to go with the free SHS. Because we tend to commit more to take care of the young ones, but then where they will sleep becomes a problem. And one of the problems that the free SHS has come up with, which I think the current administration has seen the light and they're trying to solve, that is the infrastructural provision. So government takes care of the feeding, takes care of the fees, takes care of clothing to some extent, and other things. But then the infrastructural provision was being compromised. So the quality was being compromised. Now, having all this, then I would say that, okay, those who can pay should be able to pay. So if you ask whether we should review it or not, I'll go straight to tell you that having the problems that has come with it, of course, it's a policy. You may have to allow the policy to run for some number of years to assess whether indeed the policy is making impact positively or not before a review. The timing of the question is correct. We need to review it to determine who can pay so that we get, value for what, the government is spending on. Let's also look at it this way. Can we say that free SHS is free? Because, of course, it's public funds. Public funds are funds, for myself and you. At the end of the day, the only difference is that the burden has been taken by government. And we're still using, if it's coming from petroleum fund or APFA or whatever source it is coming from, it is, Ghanaians' money. And so if it needs to be reviewed for parents to absorb part of the payment, and then also how we can integrate that review with a national identification card so that we'll be able to determine parents who can pay. Because every parent that has the ID card, we know the job they are doing from just the card alone. And that should be able to help us, solve the problem we are facing. Thank you.
I'll come up with a follow-up question, but I would like to, Bernard, your thoughts on whether the current curricula is fit for purpose in addressing the future of jobs. And at least your sub-team was encouraging critical thinking.
Yes.
So you can,
Okay, good evening, everyone. So, as an employer, I will say that today we are not training people for the jobs of today or the jobs of tomorrow. When we were coming up, the mark of achievement was to pass, maybe an O-level or an A-level, get a degree, get a certificate, and our employment setup was also based on using that as a criteria for determining who you bring in. But if I look at the people that I'm trying to recruit today, majority of them may not have even done a degree, but they're probably more skilled in what I'm looking for than the person who's actually spent all those years in academia. So I actually believe that no, we're not training for the workforce. We're training based on what historically we've done. We've not evolved ourselves to reflect the needs of industry in academia. So you can train on the subject matter, get people averse in terms of what is happening out there and acquiring knowledge. But we don't need necessarily to have just a certificate or a degree as the means of determining suitability for the workforce. So in a very quick nutshell, I would say a blanket no, we are not. We could do way better. If I look, and I'll give maybe an example. I run, as you said, I'm in MTN, and I run all the systems at MTN. If I want to hire a software developer today, a degree, if I say I'm looking for a degree before I hire the person, half of them don't have degrees, okay? But they are more skilled potentially than my degree holders, because they spend more time getting their hands dirty than getting that certificate. Okay, so if I say I'm only going to go to the university and get a guy with a degree to come in, I may be depriving myself of even better quality, arguably. So I think definitely there's a place for evolving how we prepare the young people for the workplace. Thank you.
So I'll take the opening statements from all the panelists before. So I'll allow my colleague Augustine to give us his thoughts on his sub-team that has to do with encouraging, building values and bridging the skills gap in industry. And
Thank you so much. I find it interesting that Senior Benadakwa speaks about the skills gap in quite a different light from what I've been looking at it, and I think I'll make a few references to what he said. But in my own estimation of the current skills landscape, globally and then also in Ghana, I think there's consensus that the nature of work is changing, and we are right in the middle of it. There isn't consensus of what the new status quo may look like. I mean, it's still out there. We're not sure how it might settle. But the fact that there's change happening currently is without question. And we've had a skills gap perennially in Ghana. The complaints of people who are coming right out of school not being adequate for the job market have been with us for several decades now. Now, this change in work, I think, compounds the problem. Because not only are we not now preparing to build the competencies that we need now, we must also forecast and train for the competencies that we will need in the future. And this is happening very rapidly. Now, I believe that we must transition from looking at individual interventions to looking at values that may guide the way we build human development. Mfantsipim, our alma mater, at the risk of making it sound too mechanic, is a factory that produces human resource, right? And this human resource does not reside only at the senior high school level, but also beyond that. And we see the evidence of that in the group that has gathered here today. I believe that we cannot out-train or out-hire our skills gap problem. Now, currently, we have the skills gap manifesting in two different ways. On the one hand, we have people coming out of school whose competencies do not match what industry is looking for, at least at entry level. On the other hand, also, we have a rich pool of talent who travel abroad, often get highly specialized training, and then the industry we have here is not able to absorb them fully, at least not in large numbers, right? And I believe the themes that my colleagues will talk about will deal largely with the latter part. But with the initial set of people, that's the students who are coming out, and somehow there's a mismatch between competencies and what industry is looking for. I believe we need to look at what values will steer the interventions that we have to train in such people. And I'd like to propose three that I think can form like a good North Star for all our interventions. First, I think that it's important to deepen the relationship between academia and industry. And we keep saying this, but I think that we must look at how we can do this in a very tangible way. An initial thought that comes to mind might be joint development of curriculum, for example. So an active role of people in industry in developing the curriculum of academia. In that way, the needs are passed down directly. We must observe that it's important to have some joint projects and possibly funding of industry of the activities of academia. So we could be looking at joint research projects, we could be looking at training projects and mentorships. Right? Secondly, we must also foster that culture of lifelong learning and upscaling, because as we've alluded to, the changes are happening and coming at us really quickly. The skills that you might train today as being in demand in the next 5 or 10 years might as well be obsolete. And so that resilience must be built in the labor pipeline. People must be able to take on new roles, must have the resilience to retrain and adapt their skills. And I think finally we must also have a shift in the way we perceive certain work types. and I'm referring specifically to technical and vocational fields. Subsequent governments, current governments, and even multinational agencies have all identified TVET as an area where we have perhaps the most critical skills gap. Recently, we've also seen reports that mention agribusiness and agri-processing. And these are areas with huge potential, but that our own societal stigma has relegated to a sort of a secondary role. I think that it's worth noting that Mfantsipim is one of the very few top-level schools that actually have a technical program. And it's not coincidence that if you go into some of the fields that we operate in, I am an architect. In the architecture and engineering fields, you would see dominance of Mfantsipim alumni in that field. I believe it's the same for the engineering field as well. And so in trying to change the perception that we have in these areas, I think we stand a better chance of putting in place interventions that can help fill that gap. Thank you.
Quick reaction. Quick reaction.
Okay.
You know, when it comes to academia, I mean, the graduates we produced and then the job market needs, we really have to be careful in here. Because there are some courses in the university that you do, they are foundational courses. They are not courses that directly build you up to the job market. However, if you are to take someone who has this foundational course and then the one without, looking at how much you're going to spend to train the one without this foundational course, for him to fit the job that you are looking for, we may have to consider, you know, the economic aspect of it as well. Thank you.
I would like to make a comment on a book I was reading on my way here. And it was written or authored by the daughter of the first vice president of Ghana, Tigraf Johnson. And I picked a page in there where he had a whole chapter on his days at Mfantsipim. And it actually caught my attention, where F.L. Battels invited R.P. Balfour, who was an engineer, to visit the school. And he had a problem with his vehicle, so the students just gathered, and he came out and fixed the car. So the headmaster arranged that the smart students could come to Accra and work at his company. I think he was then in charge of one of the state transport companies. And SSS students, secondary school students, the smart ones came to Accra to work at his company as mechanics. And I was wondering whether we would allow our kids to work as mechanics apprentices during their vacation, just to gain some skill, so that at least once you have a problem with your vehicle, you know your boy can fix it. These are some of the things we need to think through. As he mentioned, it's only in Mfantsipim that we had a bit of TVET in there. We had our carpentry, and then we were doing woodwork and then metalwork at the time. I want to relate my second question to the problem I faced a few days ago on school placement. And I was wondering whether Mfantsipim should consider having a second campus. Because from the research, we've heard that there is enough space to accommodate all the students in Ghana. So there's demand, there's supply, and there's that huge gap. So what's the problem then? It's not that they don't have the infrastructure. They have a lot of schools, private. They have a lot of senior high schools, public. And we have few students. And yet still you have long queues at the computer center looking for placement.
Yes, so I'll respond straight by saying that we have a lot of schools, but then there are differentials in infrastructure provision. And then also, if you go to the GES, they have ranked the schools A class, B class, C class, and all those classifications. every parent may want the child to be in a particular class of school. So we're talking about A-class school. And so the queue that you see there is to get placement, but not just placement, because I'm thinking about going to Mfantsipim. Gone were the days how we managed to enter Mfantsipim, we don't even know. Those days they used to do CHARS conference selection, where the headmasters comes to Accra, they have a conference and they select the students, go back and print out the admission forms for them. But now the computer is doing with the headmasters, there were some kind of, should I say, humanitarian involvement. Because I'm coming from somewhere, a village somewhere, and I just jump into Mfantsipim because of the grade I got. Because the headmaster says someone from that backyard getting this grade, you should go to Mfantsipim. But now computers don't know that. Computers cannot determine whether this person is coming from. They have a way of, filtering and all those, but it will be so rigid if you're using those algorithms and other things to select, schools placement for kids. And so the parents that you see there are not just parents who just want schools. Those who want schools can go online to do placement. They have option to do your own placement online. But those who have queued there are looking for Mfantsipim, St. Augustine's, Adisada College, Prempeh, and all those A-class schools for their kids. And so that is the problem we face now, and is inequality in infrastructure. And then also even the resource availability, the teachers and all those. You talk about teachers who want to be at Mfantsipim, you are expecting a certain standard. Teachers who want to be at a certain secondary school, I don't want to mention names, but then they are also of a certain standard. So those are the things that the system we are running has come with. But if we can run a system where there's equity in terms of infrastructure provision and all those, I think we should be able to curb this situation. But also not forget that the so-called A-class schools has a history. And of course, we are all sitting here because of the history. Talking about 149 years,
Yeah,
old.
let me...
A history comes with its own advantage.
Yeah.
And that is what every parent wants his child to, to be part of.
I would want to share my own experience. The 80s was tough, and Mfantsipim can testify to that. We got to Form 1, and we met a very good team of teachers. But by the time we got to Form 2, they were all gone. They joined the Exodus, joined the bandwagon, and then they either left for Nigeria or South Africa, training the Dangotes and the Elon Musks. So we depended on teachers. We're lucky we had UCC and then Winneba. That was quite close to Cape Coast. So at least the trainee teachers would come to Mfantsipim and then use us for their teaching practice. And the 80s was really rough. And so I want to pay tribute to those who survived that period. Tribute to the late Chinwe Hesse and Mfantsipim in particular. And I still want to come back to the question of should we consider a second campus, since you could still study remotely. Ours is a brand, values, and a tradition. So the structure bit, I know the architects will think of the structure bit. But if we have enough schools and less students, we could still carry our brand, our value, our traditions, and then get a structure, have a campus in the Savannah region, another in the forest region, and then maybe your final year, you have the proper Mfantsipim experience on the coast, so that at least you have a taste of all. critical thinking. We're just thinking out of the box. I understand we have Mr. David Aduansong. Is he online? Moba 75, a member of the panel. Do we have him? Oh, okay. Mr. Ashong. Public discourse. So we'll look at the environment. There's been a lot of talk of Galamsey and others, but I would believe that we focus on what the real problem is. We'll be going to the school in November. We don't want a situation whereby we'll be told the taps are not flowing as a result of these environmental issues. My position is that let's focus on what the problem is. It's pollution, it's deforestation. And what are some of the solutions we could think of? Should we get these things taught in schools? If it's mining, if it's pollution, there is a way to resolve these things. And I know the scientists and engineers can research. You can mine gold without even using mercury or cyanide. And if our waters are polluted with mercury, there's a way to get it out through phytoremediation. So these are some of the things I want us to share our ideas on, I'll start with my colleague, Augustine, who is an expertise in the built environment. So.
Unfortunately, not in Galamsey, but...
It will surprise you to know that De Graaf Johnson built the mining shaft for Ashanti Goldfields. He researched and designed a mining shaft for Ashanti Goldfields.
Yeah, I think that the issues probably in the long run come down to a few things. Whenever the discourse on Galamsey is happening, at least in the circles of policymakers and people in government or in opposition, there's always the use of certain terms. Galamsey, illegal mining, small-scale mining. And it's very easy to get lost in that terminology. And sometimes you get the sense that the terminology is being used deliberately to justify a certain wing of the mining or otherwise. But I think the primary issue is an environmental one, as you said. And sometimes it's an issue of developing expertise, but also an issue of enforcement and policy. Now, we know that the University at Takwa has specialty in mining. We also know that a majority of their graduates do end up with the larger mining companies. They're not the ones mostly engaged in the smaller scale mining. Now, just an anecdote, I don't know how true this is, but it's been said that the environmental, sort of the reclamation of land that is necessary to mine responsibly, the smaller scale miners do not have the capacity, technically or in terms of money, to do that. If that is indeed the case, then it means that below a certain scale, really, no mining should be allowed for environmental reasons. But it seems that what complicates the issue is the matter of livelihood now versus livelihood in the future. And that brings to mind the classical definition of sustainability, right? The Brundtland Convention, where it says that you don't want to compromise the ability of future generations to take care of themselves by you doing so now. And so if we're indeed taking a look at the long term, if we are doing our Jinshekan, then we must really place emphasis on what the future generations might receive from our hands rather than what we do now. So I think we need to rewind, take a broader look at that discussion, and have the environmental issues and the sustainability issues be the prime concern, and then find ways of mitigating what the livelihood issues now might be. Those are my views on that.
Okay, so
Prof.
when it comes to Galamsey, myself, I have experience in there. I'm someone who grew up at Akwetia, one of the villages there. And in fact, after JHS, we started mining as young men who were coming up before I even started secondary school. But then, what's the problem? The problem I realize now is the classification of what we call Galamsey and the medium-scale mining. When we were mining at the time, we gather small pieces of diamonds and gold for about a month before we sell them. So the deterioration was very slow. We were not using excavators. It was shoulders, pickaxe, and shovel. So effectively, very slow in deterioration. To some extent, by the time you mine about, let's say, 100 meters, you come back, nature has restored, what you left as, it's supposed to be. So the deterioration was very slow. Now, let me emphasize that mining, the extent of mining we are doing, which we call it Galamsey, is not Galamsey. It's a medium-scale mining, which has failed to do the right investment for mining. The reason why I'm saying this is that Obuasi Gold Mines has been in existence for 100 years and over, large-scale mining. They never destroyed any river. They never touched on any, water body. Akwetia GCD mines. Growing up, we could hear machines running every now and then in our ears. Brim was not destroyed. The question is why? Now, the kind of mining investment our people are doing, which I call it, kind of poverty mining strategy, which they invest less, but they are getting more profit unnecessarily, which at the end of the day, if they are to do the right investment in mining, it will reduce their profit, and very few people can go into the mining. Okay. The reason why I'm saying this is that the Akwetia Township itself, as my example, does not have much land for the mining. So the company was driving all the way about 15 kilometers to go and fetch the sand and bring it to the plant at Akwetia. They fetch the sand closer to the Brim River, but because they know the consequence of, mining close to the river, what can happen, they did a middle-level investment, which our current Galamsey workers have failed to do. For me, if you ask me, what policy should we roll
Solutions.
out? Yes,
Solutions,
I'm coming to the solution. What policies should we roll out? I would say that for every excavator imported, we should ensure that there are 3 trucks that comes with it. 3 trucks. Because when the machine fetches the sand, there should be a truck that will carry the sand away from what? The river, all the way to a place where, they can process it and get their gold, whatever it is. And that place can be declared an area where you cannot plant anything, whatever. So for me, the right investment must be done. It must be done by those who are mining, and that will deter them from, even going into the so-called Galamsey.
Yeah. Can we use AI to resolve this issue?
I'm not an expert on mining. AI has got its limits. So you can use AI to do environmental analysis, geological analysis, and it can drive you to where you can get deposits, and then you can steer your activity. Today, mining generally is based on prospecting, okay? You prospect, you think an area has really got good prospects, that's what it's called, prospecting, and then you go deeper to find whatever you're looking for. AI can help you to reduce the probabilities or improve the probability of you digging deeper in a particular area. So yes, you can do that. But it will not stop someone deciding to use a chemical in a place where they shouldn't. Okay, that you can't stop. You can use AI to have automated drones that checks environmental damage, report back, direct authorities to the right places. All of that you can use AI to do. But ultimately, the human being has a certain responsibility. You know, if someone decides they want to put a champagne on a water body, they want to put arsenic and other chemicals into water, there's no AI that's going to stop that physical activity.
Do we have Mr. David Adrashong online? Do we have him online? Okay. My contribution, I also have some experience, not in mining, but the tail end. I used to be a licensed gold and diamond trader, popular face at a diamond house. And the laws have always been the same since independence. And that's why I take the statement by Otumfuo to that day. The law is clear. Any mineral found on any part of Ghana belongs to the state. And at the time, we had small-scale mining, but that was really small. The big companies, you have to go through Minerals Commission. Anybody found with gold or diamond, the police can even arrest you unless you have a license from PMMC. So what changed? You know, the question was, what changed? We just lowered the bar at Minerals Commission and allowed everybody to dig everywhere for gold. My solution will be, yes, we have a lot of gold, but for years, we've not built capacity to mine our own gold responsibly. Should we have that in our curricula, at least technical schools? Because the method we're using, it's something we just adopted from another foreign country, which we believe can be used to mine gold. From the IT sector, there's so much information on the internet on how you can mine gold or research into it, you know, get CSR to research into it. The waters that have been polluted, yes, you can still get the heavy metals out of the soil and get it out of the water through phytoremediation. So let's get our critical hats on and think through it. Instead of the legal aspect, let's have an ally. They are illegal minings, so let's set up an office in every district and then get them licenses for all the illegal miners to become legal miners. Yeah, rather than looking at the science and the engineering aspect of it. Engineers can start designing a way of ways of mining gold, small scale and responsibly, and not destroying the environment. Scientists can also look at how to get the heavy metals out of the soil and out of the water. We'll take some questions from the audience and those online. Do we have a mic?
Thank you very much. I remember in 2017, I happened to be part of a discussion that took place at the Labade Beach Hotel. And the topic that day was whether government alone could fund the free senior high school. You know, and the main presenter was Professor Aite, who I think is a former vice chancellor. And on that day, he was able to give us the statistics to the extent that the numbers, and as we move from year 1 to year 2, how much money that the state would need. Okay, and I remember then that the Director General of the GES was there. The Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, then was also there. At the end of the day, the GES board said that it was a government policy. And so the point that, Prof, you've made, that yes, with the Ghana card, we should be able to know that your mom works here, your dad works here. But I think that once it is a state policy, everybody wants to benefit. Okay, the other issue is that even the finance minister, in his speech, mentioned that it was a big issue. Okay, I am an economist and a tax consultant. And I remember that one of the recommendations that I made was that, for example, our law, if you make a donation to a worthwhile cause, the cardio center, sports, and all of that, that amount that you pay is given to you as a deductible expense. Why can't we amend our tax laws and say, for example, that if the margins group gives 1 billion cedis to the free senior high school, okay, I am sure that we will be getting somewhere. I remember on that day, because of a comment that I made, when I was leaving, there was a presenter from Joy News, and he engaged me. I didn't know that. In fact, the program ended at 11. And then Joy News, midday, they showed me. And I didn't even know. After the meeting, I was supposed to meet a client. And that client happens to be a politician. In fact, he's a very good friend. But when I went to his office, he said, Eric, get out of my office. And I didn't know, yes, what was happening. And they said, look, Sisia na join is you. Instead of keeping quiet. And I remember the following day, the front page was my picture. Those of you, yes, who I remember I still have that picture with a tag around my neck. At the end of the day, all of us there, the conclusion was that government alone couldn't fund it. Okay, now to the mining. I sometimes get sad because when you drive from Accra to Jaso, those, you see after and you name right down to where I come from, Jaso, right down to Konongo. Okay, you see that people are mining by the side of the road. And I remember the last time that I drove there, we were on a bus because of the nature of the road. I picked the bus. And there was a police vehicle parked by the side of the road, though. And people were doing the... So I think that if we want to move on as a nation, first of all, we need to change our attitude. Okay? And so anytime we talk about Galamsey and all of that, we know that this year alone, the number of excavators, because that truck that have come into the country, never in the history.
Okay.
You see, so these things, I think that we need people who can take the bull by the horn and then punish people. Look, we have been saying that, why can't we repeal the law that allows us to go into the forest? Why can't we
want
do
to
it?
focus on the science and engineering, not the legal aspect. Understand,
Okay,
Mr.
so
David Ado
I'll just pause.
Ado Ashong it's online.
Yes, I believe I am. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Maybe.
Fantastic.
Okay. Your thoughts on elevating standards. We're looking at the big elephant in the room, free SHS. The issues, whether we have an educational crisis or not.
course content, feeding, funding. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all apologize for my inability to be there. I had a sudden need to travel. I'm happy though that I'm able now. So it was your opinion, distinguished guests and Moba members, staff and students of the school. A few thoughts on this issue of sustaining legacy within the current environment in which we operate. How do we sustain legacy and build excellence? We all know that we have a distinct history, and previous speakers have alluded to the fact we are a grade A school, I presume, and consequently a place where many people wish. As a result, I think what we all see is that Mfantsipim has arguably attracted more students every year than it can sustain. The result has been an undue pressure on our resources, our infrastructure, and has led, in my view, to a lowering of standards. One of the strategic moves that have been envisaged by our leadership, by Penning and NEC, has been the establishment of the Moba Endowment. And this, I think, in my view, is a bold and strategic response to the growing responses. Simply, an endowment fund is just an investment fund designed for long-term growth and perpetual support of an organization. Only the from the fund's investments is used to support a purpose, thereby ensuring a long-term financial health of the institution. I'm aware that part of our strategic plan, this Moba has actually been established. I'm not sure that it has started operating, and I appreciate that there'll be a lot to be done before it can become operational. But I believe that the endowment fund is a very important initiative because it permits Moba to introduce a harmonized strategic approach to funding and resourcing and moving beyond ad hoc efforts towards sustaining the school. I think we must all be clear-eyed about why such an initiative is necessary. Previous speakers have referred to the dearth of resources in the school and the pressure that is placed on Mfantsipim, Flagstaff school. And this has created problems for us, not only for Mfantsipim, but for all the key secondary schools in the country. And let me just refer to some of the previous speakers and what they've said. Clearly, government cannot support all the schools and provide all the infrastructure that is required if these schools are to maintain the standards that are. What we are seeing now is a high student to resource ratio and SSH, and this was recently referred to in one of the last speaker's comments, that there's a loss of control over admissions. It's driven by the free HS policy and central placement of students. Question, is that a terrible situation? It's clear. It's not something we can sustain. The solutions may need to be fairly radical if we are going to achieve what we want to do. And it's in that the endowment fund provides a real opportunity, in my view, for change. We have heard all the accounts. We are told that there's a deliberate policy to less advanced students in flagship schools like in Mfantsipim. I suspect this may be an apocryphal story. The thought seems to be that a rising tide will carry all the boats up. Whether it's true or not, I think the practical impact of what we are seeing, admitting huge numbers of students to Mfantsipim beyond the ability of its to sustain them, is a leveling down of standards in schools. And I suspect that if this trend continues, Mfantsipim will be dragged into a general mediocrity of secondary school education in this country. And it is something we must avoid. Members of Moba have played a major role over the years in bridging this resource gap. And their contributions over the years, especially through the infrastructure projects undertaken by sponsoring year groups, they have had an impact. Without those contributions, I have no idea where the school would be now. And I'll take this opportunity to congratulate my colleagues for the sacrifices and contribution made as a body, as a brotherhood, towards keeping our school up and going. But even more is needed if the school is to achieve the standards we seek. And it's in that context that a strategic approach to raising funding and creating the resources in a sustainable manner, as has been envisaged by the Endowment Fund, becomes critical. History, in fact, gives insights into what Mfantsipim has done over the. Those of you who have read Edouani's book will realize that Mfantsipim has had a checkered history in terms of its sustainability as a school or institution, and has faced near collapse many times. And the key elements in keeping the school has been the cooperation between the church and other secular groups, leaders in society. The Aborigines Protection Society, way back early 1900s, the Political Society, and the influence of people like John Mensah Saba. I see there's evidence that at some point, some leading citizens of Cape Coast floated a company, Fancy Schools Limited or something, issued shares, raised money, and put that money to save the school, which was facing financial reasons at the time. So we have done earth-shaking things in the past, and the solutions that I'm going to recommend, whilst radical, are grounded in our history. They are things we have done before as a school. Mfantsipim possesses a strategic position which is unique to it and not necessarily the same as other schools in the country. We have an almost symbiotic relationship with the Methodist Church. And my information,
Senior boy, we
from
have
the available
1
history-
minute.
Oh, okay. Is that the school are owned by the Methodist Church. And this fund we are creating gives us the opportunity to raise the resources, which will enable us to work with the Methodist Church, use those assets. We will bring in the money as an endowment fund and free Mfantsipim from the strictures of the SHS system, from the GES system, and operate as a private institution. I recognize that we will need to negotiate this with government. I recognize that we need to work with the church on this, but I think it's a solution if we can raise the funding required that addresses many of these problems. If you relieve us from government investment enrollment quotas, it will allow competitive admissions and raise our academic standards, create the path towards independence, operational and financial. There's a lot. I'm told I have only a minute.
Few seconds.
But there's a lot more I would like to on this topic, because I think it's an important topic, and it's an issue that we should give thought to.
Exactly.
We should not be bound by convention. We should look at this radical solution to our problem, and to the best of our ability, push this agenda through to free the school and enable us to operate in the way that we were meant to, that we were founded to.
Thank you.
So I think I'll wind up. I'm sure maybe I'll get a chance to push in some of my points as we have a discussion.
Exactly. Yeah. After school, I guess the next thing is jobs. I remember when the free SHS was launched, Otunfo made it clear that the problem is after school what next? Putting food on the table. So, yeah. But before my panel picks up that, we'll still take some questions from the audience. Two questions and then... Oh, on Zoom. Okay.
Good evening to everyone present and our cherished viewers. My name is Papa Martin, the current head boy, and on behalf of the entire students body, we would like to know, as we celebrate 149 years, what advice would you give to current students of the school on sustaining the legacy of the school while building our own excellence to have positive effects on the environment? Lastly, what is Moba doing to reduce book-long graduates and ensure Mfantsipim churns out holistic and world-ready students who are more suited towards the current job market? Thank you.
Is that the only question? Yeah. Yeah, get a mic.
Hello. Yeah, good evening. I'm Samuel Boy Tesevifia Mobile 6, owner of Waste Segregation Systems. What I would like to know is that there's not a question, but there's something that's been on my mind for a while. And I think we can look at it going ahead. Even as we work on getting the stadia and the sports excellence place. Going into the future, I think it may be a prelude to the next thing we want to speak about, but about building entrepreneurship in our students. I think it's something we need to look at. What I've been thinking about is a place not only for entrepreneurship, but also the right mindset and also a national identity as well. So I think we could have something like that going forward. Thank you.
Well noted. Bernard, AI is taking all our jobs. How do we survive?
Okay.
Do we create our own jobs or we go look for one?
Okay. Thank you. So I think I spoke at a conference a few months back, and I made a statement that it's not about AI taking away jobs. The future is that those who work with AI will replace those who don't work with AI. Okay? That's the bottom line. So there are certain occupations that may no longer exist because technology will be a very good enabler. Okay? And what will exist in the future will be the fact that there are people who are very technology savvy, or they've gotten themselves used to using those tools, and they are the ones who are going to own the future. So, in the same way that today there are certain jobs that existed 50 years ago that don't exist at all today because automation has come, machines have come. Nobody rides a horse to go anywhere, right? Today, they ride it for leisure or sports, okay? Because today there's a motor vehicle. So similarly, you will find that certain occupations may not be the same as before. So when we talk about things like there will no longer be lawyers, there will be lawyers. But the lawyers will use AI as a tool to help them to do a better job of presenting their case. So it's not about replacing jobs per se. That would be my argument. But to the first question, because I actually feel very strongly about this topic, and I think we talked about it earlier. I feel very strongly about the fact that we as an All Boys community are very focused on what we do for the school, which is great. But then when our junior boys leave the school and they're now in university, I don't see any mechanism that prepares them for the workplace. Okay? I spent quite a bit of time I met the Moba from University of Ghana a couple of years back. And I've been engaged with them since. But I feel very strongly that there needs to be a real exercise of how we continue to work with Moba beyond the walls of Kwabuche. Because frankly, within the school, there's a guardrail around your behavior, what you do, your attitudes, and all of that. When you leave the four walls and you are out in the open world, you probably need us even more because we may be in a position to maybe give you an internship, a job, even life skills as an upcoming young man, finding your way in life and society. So there's a whole area that I feel really strongly about that we as Moba potentially need to extend our thinking to. Be not in exchange for doing something in the school, but in addition to, because I think that area really needs some attention. Thank you.
Yeah, your comments on that.
Yeah, it's good to hear from the head boy. And I'd like to just speak about the first part of his question, which is how do you get jobs? How do you get yourself into the workforce? I think that as students, or recently graduated students, either from SHS or the uni, you must first build your soft skills. Because we find that the lack of skills that we talk about, often they reside in the soft skills. And in that transition from applying the technical skills into real-world work. Now, having said that, I think another value that's very important is to resist the temptation of thinking that whatever you learned in school was meant for school, and that there is a real world which is somehow separate from school, and that what you've learned is not transferable or applicable to the real world. So if I had any bit of advice, that's what I would say. First, build your soft skills to resist the temptation to think that you must abandon what you've learned in school in order to survive in the real world.
Prof. Yes, job, AI taking over jobs. I think if you look at the job space, I would say that it's not all of them that will be taken over by AI. I'm trying to, take my mind back on how AI works. Because you're looking at a system where you query, and then it has to go into a box of a big data space, try to jabble few things together, and see what comes out that will fit your query. But then the question is, if we continue to query the same big database structure, I mean, if I say continuum, everybody is feeding on the same big data structure. I will come to a point that there will be nothing new in there. So when you query it, we all have the same output. So what have we done to ourselves as human beings? I would say that because of my background, I'm able to, establish this because I had mathematics background from my first degree. I will, say that we still need a human mind. We still need the human input in the same database that we query every now and then. So even though AIs are going to take over jobs, I'm researching and then coming up with innovations, starting new things on your own as far as the human mind is concerned. Documenting it to be captured by the same database, I think is in order. And I don't think with that, people are going to go out of jobs. Thank you.
Do we still have Senior Boy online? Or is off? And we'll take two more questions from the audience. Yeah. Oh, okay, then, yeah. Critical thinking.
Yeah, so, hello? Yeah. So critical thinking, I think that is basically what you were speaking to. So in preparing for this session, I was looking at last year's engagement series and to see how that went. And Abu, who was the moderator last year, talked about critical skills. And I think in the world or the advent of emerging technologies like AI and everything else, critical skills, and that's exactly what you were speaking to, are even more important than ever. And what are critical skills? These are the skills of being able to discern, to think, to really get evidence to base your conclusions on. And we are in danger at the moment in thinking that an AI model can do that for you. Actually, you need to be able to discern when this model is telling you something that is genuine and something that you need to question. Okay, someone gave an analogy recently that is like you lying under a tree that has fallen and having no physical strength yourself to lift the tree off you. If you don't build your own personal strength and your own knowledge and your own ability to reason and discern, how do you know when the model is actually telling you something that's not true? So you need to still have self-development. You need to still build yourself so that you can use these tools to enhance what you do. Ultimately, the AI regurgitates back to you what you've trained it on, exactly what you were saying. The more you train it, the more it's able to discern and come to conclusions. So critical thinking is even more important because AI is full of biases, it's full of all kinds of things that can skew you totally off. All right, so for me, it's even more important. A lot of the new technologies that are coming, that we have the ability as human beings to continue to do what only humans can do. Okay, and not machines, yes. Thank you.
I understand we have some questions online, or a contribution online. Okay. A follow-up question has to do with how do we use these technologies to solve the cheating in exams? I saw an article, a newspaper headline, where the chief of staff was complaining about cheating in exams. Because if people cheat in exams, then the professionals that are coming out may not be the people who have the requisite skills to solve our problems for us. Any comments on that? I guess we also take answers from the audience, not only from the panelists.
Yeah. I have a solution.
Yeah.
A suggestion, anyway.
Someone wants to ask a question. Okay.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Good day. My name is Dan Ali, Moba 2017, and I wanted to greet everyone. I have a question to piggyback off the statements made by my seniors here on jobs and AI and then creativity. And I wrote it down, so I just want to... One thing I have noticed is how there might be little, but undeniably an inherent disdain for the creative ability or skill of people in Ghana because of the capitalistic demand in society. So a student or someone who has just come out of uni would spend their entire life building skills for what will pay well instead of what they might love. And I think there are some people who have been in that situation where they wanted to make music or they wanted to engage in the arts, but because it doesn't really pay well in Ghana per se, now you have to be put in the position where you are going to work on architecture or even mathematics or something. And with that, I wanted to know what avenues can we create to give the opportunity that would bridge the gap between people doing what they must and what they love, and how we can move forward with that. So maybe someone wants to make music, but then the person is in the engineering society or environment. How can they adapt, and how can they get the best of both worlds in that? And that's my question. Thank you.
Who will take that one?
All I want to say is I can relate to the question. Because my youngest is doing music at university.
Oh, okay.
And it was a big argument at home when he told his parents he wanted to do music. Because 2 weeks before then, he said he wanted to do AI. And I spent a fortune buying AI books. Then 2 weeks later, he said, I don't want to do the AI anymore, I want to do music. But the point is, first of all, we as parents must realize that we can't live our children's lives for them. Okay? We have our own ambitions and what we want for them. And we believe we know right. But ultimately, we need to support them in anything they do. I think the world of today is not really, the way we were conditioned into a certain path of education right from the beginning all the way through to a certain fixed profession is no longer the way things are today. So we must find a way to support our kids in doing what they love to do, but at the same time, we need to work with them to understand that it's possible that that path has a different reward structure. It may not be monetary. Okay, my son is doing music, and when I went around the universities with him in the UK, I discovered people doing music for movies, music for computer games, and they're all multimillionaires. Yep. So all of a sudden, the music wasn't such a big deal after all, right? So I think, I mean, where you're coming from, I can definitely relate personally. But we need to do something really on that. I haven't answered your question, I know. I'm just empathizing because I understand it.
I have a couple of questions here, but before that, I'll get Mr. Aduashong to address some of the things we're discussing. Mr. Ashon, are you online? Oh, okay. Any comments before I take the next round of questions?
Well, I think there are quite a few about that are relating to the endowment fund, but these are different issues.
Okay. So I have 7 questions here. What should tradition... Let me go to the second question. Since the time you stepped foot into the school as a student and left, entering the unknown, would you say a lot has changed? If yes, is it for the better or for the worse? Well, we all know the answer.
I tell you.
Can we answer already?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think for me there's one value that sometimes is presented as a negative, but that I believe is a core value of Mfantsipim. And Senior, you alluded to it earlier, and this is the value of self-tutoring and self-motivation. Now, when we were in school, this is early 2000s, there were scenarios where we didn't have certain subject teachers. And it's immediately presented as a negative thing. And you keep hearing, even to this day, members of the student body who make the same assertion that there are certain subject teachers lacking. But what I found among my mates and previous old boys, junior old boys, is that it builds a certain value of you being able to be self-motivated and to tutor yourself. And if you think back, actually, we do have a strong tradition in that with the Faithful Eight. And we do have a monument in honor of determination of a group of students who had almost no teachers, self-tutored with very little assistance, and went on to excellence. So in that sense, I think not much has changed. And that's a positive in my books.
Yeah. I guess the follow-up question is along the same line. What challenges did you face when you were students here, and what did the boys at the time do to help you? As in my opening statement, I made it clear that the 80s was really tough. There was this teacher exodus. And I keep on asking that same question whenever I run into my colleagues from Nigeria or those from down south, South Africa, Zambia, Namibia, Botswana. When you ask them that question, that who was your favorite Ghanaian teacher, especially those between the ages of 40 and 70, they get surprised. That how do you know I have a favorite Ghanaian teacher? Because all our good teachers left for these countries. So every Nigerian has a favorite Ghanaian teacher, those between the ages of 40 and 70. The same with those down south. You know, our loss was their gain. But as you mentioned, the Faithful Eight, the spirit was there. We helped each other, shared notes, shared textbooks. And the economic situation was also tough, you know. What we see these days is amazing, you know. So they can't complain. Yes, there is, from the research before this gathering, what we gathered from GES is that there is space. There are less students to fill the space. So we need to fix that gap. How do we fix that gap? You shouldn't give up. The most important thing is if you have talent, let it be known, and then we build on that talent, either in sports, in music, in technology. It's not just academia, but I raised that same question at a forum. I was asked to replace my boss at Shy Hills. We had a delegation from South Korea, and then Ghana presented its set of aspects for us to look at our history, starting from 57 till, I think, 2005. Where did Ghana go wrong? And I guess I was the youngest because I had to represent my boss. So I asked the question, do they learn science in their own language? Because I realized the Asians learn science in their own language. And everybody asked me, what's the reason for that question? And I said, during my days at Mfantsipim, my dad had a project up north. And we bought these generators from Malawi. And we got engineers to fix them. But there was a problem. The engineers came, they just couldn't fix it. And the driver said, there is a technician in Kumasi who could fix this thing. The guy came in 30 minutes, fixed it, and was able to explain it in the local language. When you go to Isha, you realize that it allows the person with that creative thinking. But if he has to put that thing on paper in English, it's going to be a hustle. So science in particular, I still believe we should find a way of allowing people to learn science in their own language, you know. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, I think I want to make a few comments and then ask a question in relation to what Augustine, you are 05, I was 06. Yes. First of all, I think that you said some people feel that what they learn in school, they feel that is disconnected from the real world. And I think that is solved when you have a focus and find maybe your life calling. Because if you identify what you want to do and then you are on that path, you realize that everything that had happened previously sort of had an input or has an input in shaping you or in contributing to what you are doing. And then there are some values I think we are losing, like, for example, the value that I'm proud that I put in the effort, went according to the requirement, and gained what I've gotten. Yeah. Yes. So that is why people are cheating today, but there was something that made us want to still do things the hard way or do things in a certain way. And there was some pride and joy in that. But I think currently the society, and usually you do what is rewarded. So we have a society where I think a gentleman there mentioned capitalistic, where it's about money, and the one who is regarded is maybe the one who has money. Let me just put it that way. So you find people, let me just find the best way to get the money. And the issues that come up are myriad. They are myriad because people don't really care whichever way they go as long as they get there. By the end of the day, there's still some deficiency and some lacking that Olakwa.
I'll take this.
Olakwa as a result of those kind of paths. And I don't know how we can correct that in our society, where you have people just thinking about going to get them. And of course, a lot of people wake up today, go to work because they need to do that to survive. But then people just thinking about just getting money and therefore not going the right way. And how do we make people feel the need to actually have some pride in going the right way to get what they need to get? So you find people, okay, being an athlete will bring money. I'm sorry. Being a musician will bring money. Being this will bring money, and that is all. And then they tend to look down on what are the other skills they can.
Okay.
And sometimes the passion they.
You have 30 seconds here. Others want to ask questions here. Yeah. Bring the microphone. Yeah. True. The mic.
Perhaps even than the number of students. The issue now is about the quality. And perhaps that's where we need to go back to the early 2000s when there was this program of creating what was referred to as the model schools. And that program is what transformed schools like Endowment Secondary School at that time. And then Chifupra, so at that time, I think at that time there were about 45 of such schools, but I can, on top of my head, remember Endowment and then Chifupra, Senior Secondary School, where within a matter of a year or two, they were transformed from the schools that nobody wanted to go to now schools that people were rushing to go. And so perhaps if we do that, then the pressure that the Mfantsipim and the other schools have will go down. Now recently we hear of Manfigers. Why is Manfigers performing? That is because there was a decision to go and bring a teacher from Wesley Girls School to come and head it. And so all of a sudden, the DNA of Wesley Girls is now transmitted into Manfigers, and now they are doing well. Recently, just about 3 years or so, Abomosu, now everyone is rushing there. Why? Because even though it was a new school, a decision was made to go and bring assistant headmaster of Presec to go and head that school and bring some teachers from Presec to that school. And so all of a sudden you have the DNA of Presec in Abomosu, and they are doing well. So perhaps we should be doing more of these, and we believe that perhaps this issue of quality and the preference for few schools categorized as A schools perhaps will also help. Thank you very much.
I guess we are on the same wavelength. Our DNA is in Prempeh because more or less we gave birth to Prempeh. So we left with Mfantsipim School in the Savannah region. Yeah, there's another question over there.
Okay. All right. My name is Emmanuel Afutu, Moba 2000. Mfantsipim is a very prosperous school. And I want to say first, thanks to the panel. I've really enjoyed the discussions and the perspectives. Mfantsipim is a prosperous school. Every time I go to the school keeps getting nicer. Yes. The school is getting better. It's asphalted. You see new painting. And I'm just wondering, we are looking, and these things now on social media. Before I went to the school, I never had seen the school. First time I went to the school was the day I stepped on the school. But today, people are seeing it. I'm just wondering, and maybe to the Moba leadership and to everyone, that what are we doing in the light of the pressures that we have? Every year we gather, and I'm happy about the endowment fund. But can we consider maybe not a corporate social, or maybe a corporate social responsibility, but then the monies we gather every year from the various groups, maybe to say every year we'll give 10% to a smaller school, go and build something over there, every year whilst we are still developing. I think the pressures locally, because today there is a local content that we do across, the Cape Coast region. But today, the schools that were there, and I remember some of them, Samo and all the others, are they there today? Otherwise, if they are not there, the pressure is on Mfantsipim. So I think to the leadership, maybe let's look at that. Is this something we can be taking on every year to do a project outside the school so that part of our prosperity, in quotes, would be shared across and will reduce the pressures on us? Thank you very much.
We'll take a question from the students on campus.
Good evening. My name is Edmond Yamount, the current deputy head boy academic of Mfantsipim School. On behalf of the student body, what is Moba doing to reduce book-long graduates, ensure Mfantsipim checks out holistic and world-ready students who are more suited towards the current job market?
Yeah.
It was the same as the first question.
That's the question.
No, it's the same as the first question. This gentleman first. Maybe I can attempt a response.
Okay.
Shall I?
Yeah, let's take a second question and I'll attempt a response. Yeah.
How do we catalyze a change in the job market, the practicality of the educational thing? The government has better. Others are selling the push of this educational change.
Yeah, we didn't hear what he said. Can he repeat? Yeah. The first question, I thought I heard we producing book-long graduates. And I want to relate that to a chapter in De Graaf Johnson's book, what F.L. Battels did when R.P. Baffour visited the school. And he got the students to do internship at his workplace as mechanics apprentice, working as fitters. And the way it's even captured in the write-up was interesting, And they all ended up as engineers, researchers. And one of his works that has caught my attention was to find a cheaper way of us putting up our houses. At the time, they knew of Atakwame, and he did a lot of research on Pozolani, as a possible replacement for for Portland cement, using bauxite, waste from bauxite. So we need to put on our critical thinking caps and then look at all the resources we've been blessed with. Mfantsipim is quite close to the ocean. We hardly learn anything about the ocean. I visit my place in Commander and I have to join the fishermen to drag the net the same old way since creation. No new ideas on how to pull the net, So let's find solutions to our own problems and then create jobs out of it. And critical thinking is why we are here today. And I heard the Minister of Education yesterday when the Vice President met him that they're going to change the curricula from nursery up to the university. We hope whatever is discussed here, we come up with solutions and then we also make our inputs. Because at the end of the day, it's our kids who end up taking in the pill. We find solutions to our environmental issues, pollution and others, and you can still make money out of it. I was discussing the mining pollution with my niece who lives in South Africa, and he's done a very good job on that, won awards, pitched his ideas globally, and he's just an undergrad. So he sent me his project document, and I was going through it yesterday. I did chemistry, so I was amazed at that level. And in South Africa, is well known for mining. And his argument was that all the newspapers are reporting that the mercury and cyanide is getting into our food chain. Phytoremediation is the same thing. Find plants that can absorb all the mercury out of the water and out of the soil. The question I asked is that, okay, if you use these plants to get the mercury and cyanide out of the water and the soil, what happens to the plant? Because the mercury will still be in there. You say, yeah, that's the challenge. We still need to research on how to destroy those plants after that, So let's keep on thinking through these things instead of looking at the legal aspect, getting licenses, don't get a license, licensing illegal people, and creating jobs out of it. Others will extract the mercury out of that same plant and have a whole industry to employ more. Yeah. So that we don't limit everything to AI. There was a question about the students have one more question. Okay, we will take that one.
Good evening. Please, how do we advise the job accept the practicality of the new educational system? The government has meted out to students in order to accelerate the fruition of this educational change.
I didn't get that.
I didn't get it. Did you get it? Did you get it? It's not clear.
Okay.
I have a question.
How
can they write it?
How did the school help in your spiritual growth? I got my spiritual growth from an old boy, though. And at the age of 10, I met Pawili at the time, who was in charge of the Child Evangelism Fellowship. And we had good news clubs all over the country. And I was really good at the Bible. I knew the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. And there was a competition at Circle where you go through the regional level, the national level, then there's the finals. And I knew I was going to win the sword drill easily. But on the D-Day, I failed with my team. So straight away I said there was no God. And Pawili kept on calling. Those days we had these phones, it rings and my mom will call. Pawili's on the line. So to resolve my issue, first he told me he went to Mfantsipim and then he was part of the Big Six. And to find a solution to my problem, he was going to raise the stakes. The executive director for the Child Event was a Jamaican, and he was about to leave the country. So he organized a similar contest at the State House, And then as part of her send-off, and brought the winners of that contest to pit their strength against our team, and we won. And he asked, so what do you think? I say, I believe there is a God. And strangely enough, during the 50th anniversary of the Bible Society, I ran into his son, who was wearing the same light blue Agbada outfit on that day. And I had to accompany my mentor, who drove me to that event, to pick his award from the vice president, Misata, at the time. And I was like, like father, like son, from generations to generations. But in school, at least, we had the scripture union. I will ask, I think I'll call somebody from the audience to address that. Mr. Kaba is here, maybe you could share some thoughts. Can we give Mr. Kaba the mic?
I think
I don't know. I mean,
so
when we went to
wrap up.
Mfantsipim,
Yeah.
I think I think years ago when we were all growing up, we were typically probably in Sunday school, and if you listen to what Bernard said, there was a path that was sort of set for many of us. So unlike now where sometimes the kids are very expressive of what they think or not, we grew up in Christian homes. Whether you're Christian or not was not the issue, but you were in church. So I think over time that wraps off you, and many people found God as a consequence of that. The other way, or the other channel, I think, was that when we went to Mfantsipim, I mean, it was like a den of, I don't know. I mean, we had to hide from senior boys, and the safest place was maybe the school chapel, right? So people found their way to the school chapel, and after dinner, there was a SU meeting. So, child, if you didn't want to be sent, you go to the school chapel. So there were many bad boys in the school chapel, but I think over time again, many of them probably found God. So if I look at how much time we spent going to church, we did church every day of the week. There was assembly. Somebody was preaching. We had Saturday was the only day I think we didn't have service, and then Sunday we had 2 services, morning and evening. And if I look at many of my mates, we probably have about 30 pastors amongst us. If you look at many of gospel singers. So Mfantsipim has a unique way of, I think, drawing people to God. And we do have people too who are still looking. But I think that if I look at the average Mfantsipim guy, there's a bit of spirituality in many of them, regardless of whether they live that or not. But at least they understand the God factor in their lives. And we often are able to attribute how much we've come, how far we've come to how God has been there for us. So Mfantsipim deliberately sort of nurtured that God factor and the spirituality in us. I think that still exists in the school. I hope you're happy now.
We are happy.
But
Okay.
I mean, 2 comments. I think the kids are asking a lot of questions, but you're not answering them. Because they've asked about 3 questions.
It's all about jobs. There's one
So-
more question from them, and then we wrap up. The panel will wrap up all their questions so that we will take a Busiapeni's address. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening. Kojoti, sir. The protocol. Now, can we engineer a system where some advanced students are linked, connected, and allowed to intern as some Moba-headed businesses, even during their vacations?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. One more question, and then, yeah. And then we wrap. Yeah. You have the mic, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion, but I was piggybacking on senior boy David Aduashong, because I think he had very few minutes to put that message across about what the strategy was to go radical on how we get some autonomy. It's my interest is based on the fact that a lot of solutions that we prefer for our young ones who are coming behind us rests on someone else's decision. Curriculum, all of that. But your panelists have come up with AI solutions. I'll always talk about making agriculture sexy again, if you like. What we did with metal work with Mr. Slip and all of that. And you talked about R.P. Baffo, the likes of them, and Professor DeGraff Johnson. So if we don't have that autonomy and the ability to guide them in these areas, I guess it's a moot point. So my question is, how are we going to approach that, and how quickly can we get that? Because it's a clear and present danger. Thank you.
I think we will address the questions, but we'll call on Ebusuapeni to give us his address. He has a, yeah. Or do you want to address the question? Okay.
Let me
Some answers to the question, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many questions I'm answering here, but I think there was a common thread, and I think all the questions that came from the students and also from our colleague on the floor. And it was all to do with linkages between the school and industry and jobs, and what advice would we give students in the school in terms of preparing themselves for the job market. And for me, it goes back to the same thing I said before. I believe that we as Moba, and the same applies in my view to all the other all student associations, must begin that exercise of transition, let's call it, transition from the school to the workplace. I think we've all been very fixated on what we do for the school. And we haven't spent enough time fixated on transition of, in our case, boys from the school into the job market and into the workplace. And I think there's an opportunity for Moba, for Mfantsipim boys at least, to look at what we do as far as that transition is concerned. Because, I mean, the so-called book-long students, we also left learning the same stuff they are learning, so you could say we're also book-long, but hey, we're working today, we're doing jobs. How did we make it happen? What did we do? What steps did we take? What advice were we given? There's a real opportunity for us to impart to some of these young ones and help them and steer them. So I think potentially I would say we should find a way structurally of working with boys as they're about to exit Mfantsipim into higher education or the job market. Okay, the last question talked about internships at Moba-owned companies. It's really the same thing they're saying. Exposure to the job market and how you can link people in the school. Okay, if we can't do more for our just about to exit, soon to be old boys, then who can, right? So for me, I think that thread is there. We need to look at structurally what we can do beyond just helping the school to helping the boys actually when they transition. So for me, I think that probably answers quite a few of the questions that came out. Yeah.
Okay, to add on to that, one thing I have realized, and from my experience, is that what you learn in the classroom alone is not enough for you to get a job.
Correct.
There is always a personal add-on that you need to, put on conscious effort to make sure that in as much as you are learning A, B, C, D in the classroom, of course, the job will not need that A, B, C, D. But there is a link between that A, B, C, D that a job needs. I can give, again, myself as an example. I read mathematics first degree, and I remember when I was going to do mathematics, one of my uncles said, you're going to go to the classroom. And of course, I told him that, yes, the family, nobody has been a secondary school teacher, so to be a secondary school teacher is enough for me. But then as I progressed through, the lines, I realized that mathematics can do a lot. So in as much as I was studying X, Y, Z, I kept on asking myself, what can X, Y, Z do? So in the third year, going into final year, you tend to skew towards applications of the mathematics to economics, to engineering. to, even medicine. Then I realized that these are skills I may have to add up to the raw mathematics that I was taught. And so that transitioned me from, mathematics into economics and other things. And I have friends in the same way who moved into the engineering. And I know a friend similar who was lecturing at the medical school, but we all had mathematics as first degree, because at that point, the face imagery becomes kind of a surface that you need to more or less, if the students are there, to integrate to get a kind of, a shape. So you may have to add more to what you learn in the classroom. I tell my students that, look, there are some courses that are fundamental. Yep. There's no direct link to job. 1 + 1 is still 2. If you go to the university, the rules of algebra, x times y is the same as xy. But the question is, you're moving out of the world. What can you do with x, y, z? And I've seen short videos going around, find x, find x. X can be something, So we need to add more to ourselves. And another experience is that things that teachers teach me in the classroom don't stick with me more than the ones I learn myself. That is what I can tell you from my experience. So in as much as you are in school and you are being taught, try to put in conscious effort to add on some skills that can link what you're learning to the job market, and you should be ready for the job. Thank you.
Augustine, your closing remarks.
Yes,
and then we take Mr. Ashon's.
I would like to address the tag of book long, because I see that the student who asked the question seems to be quite concerned about it. And I think my thoughts are along the same lines as my fellow senior boys. Yeah. I think that tag in itself, it alludes to a certain imbalance, right? Where the knowledge base is high, but perhaps the soft skills do not match up. And my advice is that, again, the students should resist the temptation to perceive the knowledge base and the theory as inferior and not useful. I think that is very important, and that especially in today's world where expertise is highly specialized, to do well in any area of endeavor, you require intimate knowledge of that field. And that means that, by definition, you will be book long, in quotes. On the other hand, you do need to build the soft skills that allow you to interact with the world around you, allow you to be more resilient, allow you to negotiate, allow you to build up a character that allows you to push those knowledge through the filter of application. And so to avoid producing book-long students, the thing to do is supplement it with building those soft skills. But by no means feel ashamed of maybe a superior intellect or your intimacy with the subject matter. That's what I would say.
Mr. Ashon, are you online?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, your closing remarks.
Okay, immediate reaction is that I would have loved to debate this issue further. I think it's an existential problem for Mfantsipim and for all schools. And I think that discussion and this debate deserves more time. I have no doubt that NEC will provide the forum to guide us down this road. I've heard some interesting comments in line on this, and one of the things I picked on was somebody raised the issue of proposals to the law to make investments in education attractive to corporates. And I think that's a very important contribution. The fact is, government cannot sustain and cover the costs of quality education, at least not at the price we pay for it on a broad. So innovations like that are important. They will help us channel funds into education and make it a good investment for people, because people want a return on their investment. And if they're able to get some tax rebates, it makes sense. So I was really happy to hear that. I was also happy to hear about the impact of the DNA of Mfantsipim on other schools, and in fact, the impact of the DNA of other schools on new schools. It's important. But DNA, habits, and structures, I would agree, have differentiated us based on our history, our legacy, and our traditions. But they alone are not enough. We need material resources to support that. And I think that it's important that we think of them realistically. We have the DNA, but we need material support. And that is what this endowment fund is about. So I'll wrap up there.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. A round of applause for the panelists. I guess we've done a good job we've done justice to the team. And we will want to thank our sponsors, especially our host, EcoBank, for making it possible. Multimedia, Daily Graphic, Joy FM, and then My Joy Online. And thank you very much, Augustine, Bernard, and Prof, and Mr. Ashong, who joined us online. We'll take our anthem, and then we'll take the closing remarks from Ebusuapini.
The 85 PGA year groups, where's Jobon? I found his usefulness on the false starts we had with the songs. And Jobon is not here to do conduction. And these days, we should learn that the secretariat should bring a conductor all the time. So we sing to cue, and Jobon has traditionally done that role without being paid. I wonder, where is he today? He's not here today. Oh, tell him I found his usefulness. We did very badly with the Nigeria and even more badly with the for the Saints. But let me congratulate the fives. It's been a very interesting and engaging conversation that we've had. Thank you to Donny Kwame for moderating nicely. Bernard, thank you for coming. Prof. Mingsa, thank you. And the architect, very philosophical architect, and my senior boy, David Aduashong, joining remotely. It's been, as usual, of a very high standard, the quality of the discussion that we've had. Let me also welcome the APC. I'm sure the APC chairman's here. Oh, he's not. But the executive secretary is here. The APC Anniversary Planning Commission for being present as well. KB, I can see you. And the team, Yenananom Butaipa, is very important. For Mfantsipim, Butaipa is part of our DNA. We have a legacy that's 149 years this year, and will be 150 next year. It's a very long legacy. The fact that we've lasted this long means that we can even go another 150 years if we do the right things. I take notice of David Adoshong's comments about the school having almost failed several times. So it means that no matter how dark the time is, or no matter the storms, we've always overcome any obstruction to our progress. And I hope that this generation will also overcome these current headwinds that we have to make sure that Mfantsipim exists for another 150 years. So the theme is for us to remember that we built our lives, we fulfilled our visions, and we built our values and a legacy that was built on the sacrifice of many people that have come before us. And that no sacrifice from you is too big or is too small, as long as it's done in the spirit of Mfantsipim, for the values of Mfantsipim, for the advancement of our society and the progress of Ghana. Our story is a proud one across politics, across education, finance and development, and these days also across business. And it is that vision and legacy that points us in the right direction. And that gives us the passion to wake up every day, working not just for money, but for something that we believe in. Without values, we cannot build a legacy. There's been talk about people wanting to work to make money. Of course, it's good to make money, but after the money, what else is there? A legacy inspires you to go beyond yourself and to live beyond the commercial. We mark 149 years with this engagement series leading up to November, 149th Speech Day. But even bigger is next year, 150 years, where we have a landmark celebration as being the oldest second cycle institution in Ghana. For 150 years, we must not just proudly declare our age, but that age must also show our substance. Not just how far we've come, but how much we've built in the past. But even more importantly, how much we intend to build for the future. Now, David Adoshong, the president of 1975, has singled out the Endowment Fund as one of the most important foundational things that we have to do in order to expand our legacy for another 150 years. And indeed, it is a critical foundational stone in our strategy. Our strategy will soon coming up on moba.org. I'm sure you've seen our new webpage. And since we're in the digital age, we intend to populate it with current information that shows exactly how NEC is going to deliver on the next 60 months. And one of them is the endowment fund. Money is a tool for change. So the endowment fund makes Moba strong. The two cardinal principles of Moba, of course, is to ensure that the alumni gets the maximum benefits of their membership of Moba. Every relationship thrives on needs, and every organization becomes stronger when the members find the utility of the organization impacts their life in many ways. So the utility of Moba is to ensure that every single member of Moba gets an advantage from being in Moba, that their lives get better. And as part of our strategic business plan, which is the plan that I ran on to be elected, it involves building a comprehensive membership database that connects us to each other so that we can tell what competencies we have, what capacities we have, and we can leverage that. Hopefully, when we know what capacities we have, what competencies we have on that new digital platform that we're building, then we can raise enough money to build the endowment fund. That endowment fund is what's going to make Moba strong. It is what is going to give our voice weight. And it's what is going to propel us into having this argument and discussion and the cooperation with the Methodist Church to see how we want Mfantsipim to be like in the future. Because we have something to fund our ideas. Otherwise, we'll just be philosophers without much capacity. So the endowment fund is very important. I want the Mfantsipim boys, whether alive, dying, or dead, to contribute to that legacy. I want you to put in your will one of your many buildings to be given to that endowment fund so that even after your death, your legacy will continue. We want the endowment fund to be as big as that of the big schools like Yale, Harvard, and so on. And it is possible to do that if we set the right vision and if we find a utility in our membership. And if we find the use of our money beyond our lifetime for a purpose that is higher than us. So we will build it. Now, when we leverage that alumni network and database, we need an organization that is efficient. Today, Moba is still a sort of pro bono type organization. And I don't like pro bono because when you don't pay people, you can't tell them what to do. But we are building the secretariat as we promised. We have at least 200 square meters of the Methodist headquarters. And I'm sure by November we'll have finished our ultra-modern secretariat. Unfortunately, our search for an executive secretary has been quite elusive. We intend to still go about it because we don't want to hire an executive secretary who's a volunteer. We want an executive secretary that can achieve the high ambitions and goals that we want. We want an executive secretary that we can pay a market price to deliver above average results, outstanding results for Moba in the full time. I'm sure that we'll achieve that also by the speech day. Once we have the secretariat in place and we have the endowment fund now in place and we have the capacity, the human resources and the systems, we can then turn our eyes to look at Mfantsipim and prioritize what we have to do for Mfantsipim in a sustainable way. There's so many things that can be done. But like in business and in life, we need to have a scale of preference where we put the important things first, the things that are sustainably financed in order to generate more money to finance the rest of the things. I won't bore you with it, but the business plan is ready, the strategic business plan. It will be, on a brief version of it, will be on the website. It's been approved once at council and to be approved again. For the 150th anniversary itself, we have some very ambitious targets. I'm proud to announce that we've already received corporate sponsorship of $2.4 million towards the Kwauche Center for Sports Excellence. And that is to prepare the center for the 150th. So we hope that within the next 11 months, we can build a 10-key contract. Thanks to all the year groups who've been going to Cape Coast, each and at Kokodo, going to inspect the park, but now we're in a panic mode. We need an efficient 10-key process to get it ready for the 150th anniversary, and we secure the funding for that. That doesn't end there, because we're going to invest more money. We assume that when we finish, the center should be somewhere in the region of $5 to $10 million when it's completely done with continuous financing. The reason why we're focusing on this is that we can't do everything, but we all believe that sports is an integral part of education. And through sports, we can build the body and the mind. And hopefully, we should be able to get athletes who will also bring revenue back to the fund, the endowment fund, and the school. And we can enter into an MOU with the Mfantsipim school so we can have a waterfall payment on how we share resources that come so that we can reinvest it. So the KCSE is very important. We also have the dispensary, 85. I know that you're very keen about the dispensary. Take out your wallets. I'm working with 85 closely on that. We're talking to some corporates. I'm sure that we can get that fixed. And that's also a key project. We've also received some land. Moba now has 5 acres of land just opposite the senior field. And we're thinking about how we're still consulting on how we're going to use that to give Moba a stronger balance sheet than we have now. It's also noteworthy to announce that we got a house donated to us by the Phillips family. And I think you should all applaud at this stage. During my tenure as a bishop, this is the kind of gifts that I want to wake up to every morning. That I wake up and you guys are giving houses. That's not 5 cities, 10 cities. You give a whole house. So our first Ibushepe, J.L. Phillips, his family, have donated their mansion in Cape Coast to Mfantsipim School, to Moba for the benefit of Mfantsipim School. So in next year's accounts, you'll see that our balance sheet is growing. May you also give Moba a house. KB, may you give Moba a house. Be inspired. Next year, I want all of you to be giving houses. Then the one fund gets like $100 million. It is possible. No, I shouldn't say it is possible. It can be done. Now, it is possible to become political, so it can be done. Right? So this is where we're moving. I've had these topics that have been spoken about jobs and AI. And I think that, Bernard, you make the important point. AI can only do what the experts can use it for. And the better the prompt engineering, the more subject expertise, the more the AI can give you. This is what we build in IT. We call it singularity, where all the information becomes one single source. And now the AI becomes some kind of God that we all worship, right? In order to preserve that singularity, we need human diversity and humanity and intelligence and discretion in order to be able to leapfrog, especially in Africa, our creativity, to use the AI to leverage to the next. So I like that conclusion from the panelists. And I also like the phenomenon of hallucination, as they call AI hallucination, where the AI tells you stories that don't exist, right? It tells you all kinds of things. If you're not an expert, you don't know that's all lies. It's just hallucinating. So I like that point. Our future education should not all be technology-driven, but it also should be human-centered. It should be value-driven to create a meritocratic society that values productivity and the high values of honesty, transparency, accountability, and high productivity. So I think that's the conclusion from what I heard from you. Our education is not static. Yes, Mfantsipim has had a high history of self-tutoring. I like that because it is true. When I was in Mfantsipim, I read economics on my own because I thought the teacher wasn't good enough. And he was asking us to take notes. I felt it easier reading myself than to take notes. But self-tutoring assumes one fundamental assumption, that you have a strong foundational education. That means that your basic mathematics and your reading must be very good. When I was 13, I could read 1,000 pages a day. So for me, it's easy. For some people with a weak foundation, it might not be so easy. So we need to recognize that self-tutoring is also based on a strong basic reading and quantitative skills in mathematics. And based on that, if we look at the legacy that we have, and we look at the values that we have, we only get fulfilled by values. Because really, everything is worthless unless you give it value. And that's why our society has problems. People want money for money's sake because they lack values. People don't care how much they make money because they don't respect their reputation. People don't mind doing criminal things because they think it's okay. At Mfantsipim, it's not okay. We have to reinstill our values back into our society so we can build a productive and meritocratic society. That's what I take from this alumni discussion. Gentlemen, I thank you for your very intelligent conversation. I enjoyed it very much, and I wish you all a very good night.
take a message from our host, EcoBank.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Icha Osei. I'm Regional Head for Wealth and Premier Banking. I'll be doing this on behalf of my Executive Director, he's Taraskwa. Unfortunately, something took him out of the office a little earlier than planned, and so I will do this on his behalf. It's quite unfortunate because I'm sure he would have confessed that he would have wished to be an Mfantsipim old boy. I was teasing him about this yesterday, and maybe he would have finally given in. But I'm happy to do this because I live pure and speak true. I right wrong and I follow the king. So, okay. So, I'd like to thank you all for coming here to EcoBank Ghana for the 10th edition of the Moba Annual Engagement Series. On behalf of the management and staff of EcoBank, I extend our appreciation to each of you who have gathered here to reflect, engage, and advance meaningful conversations that will shape the future of our nation. Allow me to commend the leadership of Moba for the vision, dedication, and unwavering commitment to sustaining this tradition over the past decade. We are honored that you chose the EcoBank Auditorium as the home for these pivotal engagements in 3 successive years. The relationship has been going on for a while, and long may it continue. Your confidence in our institution is deeply appreciated, maybe thanks to our former Executive Director, Moba Morgan Fianco Asiedu. This year's theme, Mfantsipim at 149 years, Sustaining Legacy, Building Excellence, resonates powerfully not only within the Mfantsipim community, but also across our country. It speaks to the importance of heritage, the responsibility to uphold and build upon the foundations laid by those before us, and the collective pursuit of excellence in all endeavors. Mfantsipim's storied legacy, spanning almost a century and a half, is a testament to the transformative power of education, leadership, and service. We've had a meaningful evening and insightful panel discussions, diverse perspectives, and constructive dialogue. The topics that we explored were not only relevant to Mfantsipim, but to Ghana at large. It is through forums like this that we inspire action, ignite new ideas, and pave the way for policy conversations that drive national development. At EcoBank, we believe in empowering individuals and institutions to achieve their aspirations. We are committed to supporting platforms that nurture thought leadership and foster community advancements. It's my sincere prayer that these conversations will go beyond the walls of this auditorium. Yes, once again, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming, and long may this relationship continue. Thank you.
Another round of applause for EcoBank. Not forgetting multimedia. I think they did a good job by promoting this particular event. I got calls from Tamale, Sunyani, everywhere. And graphic, Asasi Radio, and Joy FM, and then My Joy Online. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of another great event. I will want to thank all of you for taking time off your busy schedule to be here, and hope to see you all at the school in November for the 149th speech
and prize giving day. As we prepare for the 150th, the big one, I hope we'll be able to do 2+2 so that we will gain admission to Harvard. So thank you all, and good night.